If you watch Secret Number 1, you might think it's something simple. But as you move to number 2, number 3, and number 4, you'll start realizing how quietly the human mind can be influenced. And secret number 5 might completely change the way you see people. Idea. Most people believe they understand how their mind works. But the truth is, the human mind hides powerful mechanisms that influence every decision, emotion, and behavior without people even noticing it. Explanation. Every single day, the human brain processes thousands of thoughts. Some of these thoughts are conscious, but most of them happen automatically in the background. Your brain constantly analyzes the world around you. It observes faces, tones of voice, body language, and even small environmental details. Without realizing it, your mind is always collecting data. Over time, this data becomes patterns. These patterns guide the way you think, react, and make decisions. For example, when you meet someone new, your brain can decide whether to trust that person within just a few seconds. You may feel that the decision was logical, but in reality, your brain used hidden psychological signals to reach that conclusion. This process happens so quickly that most people never question it. But here is the interesting part. The brain doesn't only react to reality, it also reacts to perception. That means the brain often responds to what it believes is happening rather than what is actually happening. This is why two different people can experience the same situation in completely different ways. One person may see opportunity, another person may see danger. Both responses come from the brain's internal programming. From childhood to adulthood, every experience shapes the brain's mental framework. The words people hear, the emotions they feel, and the events they experience all slowly build the structure of their thinking. By the time a person becomes an adult, most of their thinking patterns are already deeply embedded in the subconscious mind. This is why changing habits or beliefs often feels difficult. The brain prefers familiar patterns because they require less mental energy. But understanding this hidden system gives a person a unique advantage. Once someone becomes aware of how their mind creates patterns, they can start observing their thoughts instead of simply reacting to them. And that awareness is where real mental control begins. Human mind and psychology table. Human behavior. Psychological reason. People judge others quickly. The brain searches for fast survival signals. Humans follow habits easily. Habits reduce mental effort. People trust familiar ideas. The brain prefers stability. New ideas feel uncomfortable. The brain resists change. Idea. Human thoughts are not as independent as most people believe. External influences constantly shape opinions, beliefs, and decisions without people noticing. Explanation. Every person likes to believe that their opinions are completely their own. But psychology shows something different. Human thinking is strongly influenced by the environment. The people someone talks to, the content they watch, and the ideas they repeatedly hear slowly shape their beliefs. This process happens gradually. For example, if a person hears the same idea many times, their brain starts accepting it as truth, not because the idea is necessarily correct, but because repetition makes information feel familiar, and the brain naturally trusts familiar information. This psychological effect plays a major role in how society forms opinions. News, social media, advertisements, and public discussions all contribute to shaping collective thinking. When the brain repeatedly encounters the same narrative, it slowly builds confidence in that narrative. Over time, the idea becomes part of a person's worldview. This is one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms behind influence. The mind doesn't only analyze information logically, it also responds emotionally and socially. People tend to agree with ideas that make them feel connected to a group. This is why public opinion can shift quickly when enough people start supporting a specific belief. But there is another interesting aspect of human thinking. The brain often avoids questioning information that fits its existing beliefs. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. When people hear something that supports what they already believe, the brain accepts it easily. But when they hear something that challenges their belief, the brain becomes defensive. Understanding this mental process is important because it explains why changing someone's perspective is often difficult. Human thinking is not only about logic, it is deeply connected to identity, emotions, and social belonging. Human mind and psychology table. Human behavior. Psychological reason. People believe repeated information. Repetition builds familiarity. Humans follow group opinions. The brain seeks social acceptance. People reject opposing ideas. The brain protects existing beliefs. Opinions change slowly. Beliefs are tied to identity. Idea. True mental awareness begins when a person starts questioning how their thoughts are formed. Explanation. Most people go through life assuming their thoughts are completely independent. But psychological research suggests something deeper. Human thinking is shaped by years of experiences, conversations, education, and environment. These factors create invisible mental frameworks. These frameworks act like filters. Every new piece of information passes through these filters before the brain accepts or rejects it. This is why two people can hear the same message and interpret it in completely different ways. Their mental filters are different. One of the most powerful abilities a human can develop is awareness of these filters. When someone becomes aware of how their mind processes information, they gain a new level of control over their thinking. Instead of reacting automatically, they begin to observe their own thoughts. This creates distance between impulse and decision. That small distance is where conscious thinking begins. Highly analytical thinkers often train their minds to pause before accepting ideas. They ask questions. They analyze information. They look for patterns and contradictions. This habit strengthens cognitive control. Over time, their brain becomes more flexible and less dependent on automatic reactions. Mental awareness does not mean rejecting all information. It means understanding how information interacts with the brain. The human mind is incredibly powerful, but its power increases even more when a person understands its internal mechanisms. And the moment someone begins to question how their thoughts are formed, they take the first step toward true psychological awareness. Human mind and psychology table. Human behavior. Psychological reason. People think their thoughts are independent. The brain hides its automatic processes. Different people interpret information differently. Mental frameworks vary. Analytical thinkers question ideas. Awareness improves cognitive control. Self-reflection increases intelligence. The brain becomes more flexible. Many people think power comes from speaking more, explaining more, and proving themselves again and again. But the truth is very different. In psychology, silence can be one of the most powerful tools a person can use. When someone stays calm and silent in a tense situation, it creates curiosity and sometimes even fear in the minds of others. Human brains are naturally wired to fill empty spaces. When there is silence, people start thinking, imagining, and even overthinking. This is why silence often gives psychological control to the person who uses it wisely. For example, imagine you are in an argument. Most people will try to talk louder, explain themselves, and prove their point again and again. But when you suddenly become silent, the dynamic of the conversation changes. The other person may start wondering, "Why is he quiet? Did I say something wrong? Is he angry?" These thoughts start creating pressure in their own mind. Silence also increases mystery. And in psychology, mystery increases perceived power. Think about the people who talk less but when they speak. Everyone listens carefully. These people often appear more confident, more intelligent, and more emotionally strong. But the secret is not just silence. The real secret is controlled silence. Controlled silence means you choose when to speak and when to stay quiet. People who master this skill rarely lose emotional control. They observe more, they understand people more deeply, and they respond instead of reacting. In many psychological studies, researchers found that people who pause before responding appear more trustworthy and thoughtful. This small pause gives the brain time to process emotions. Instead of reacting with anger, frustration, or fear, the brain begins to think more logically. Silence also forces others to reveal more information. When you remain calm and allow a moment of silence in conversation, the other person often feels uncomfortable and starts speaking more. And the more they speak, the more you understand their intentions, their emotions, and and sometimes even their weaknesses. That is why skilled negotiators and psychologists often use silence strategically. They ask a question and then stay quiet. The silence pushes the other person to fill the gap. And in that moment, truth often comes out. But remember, silence should not be used to manipulate people in harmful ways. Instead, it should be used for emotional balance, understanding, and self-control. Because true psychological strength is not about controlling others. It is about controlling yourself. And sometimes the strongest response is no response at all. Now we come to the most important secret: awareness. In psychology, awareness means understanding how people think, how emotions influence behavior, and how social situations shape our reactions. Most people move through life on autopilot. They react without thinking. They follow emotions without questioning them. And they often allow others to influence their thoughts without realizing it. But when a person becomes aware of psychological patterns, everything changes. You start noticing small things that others ignore. You begin to understand why someone behaves in a certain way. You realize when someone is trying to influence your decisions. And most importantly, you learn how to protect your own mind. For example, many people use subtle psychological tactics in everyday life. Some people try to gain sympathy. Some try to create guilt. Some try to appear more powerful than they really are. But when you understand human psychology, these tactics become easier to recognize. And once you recognize them, they lose their power. Awareness acts like a mental shield. It protects you from manipulation. It protects you from emotional traps. And it helps you make decisions based on logic rather than pressure. Psychologists often say that awareness is the first step toward mental freedom. Because the moment you understand a psychological pattern, you are no longer controlled by it. Instead, you can choose how to respond. You can stay calm when others panic. You can stay confident when others try to create doubt. And you can remain emotionally balanced even in stressful situations. But awareness is not something that appears overnight. It develops slowly, through observation, through experience, and through learning about human behavior. Every conversation you have, every reaction you notice, every situation you analyze, all of these moments help strengthen your psychological awareness. And over time, you start seeing the world differently. You begin to understand that human behavior is not random. It follows patterns. And those patterns reveal the deeper psychology behind our actions. This is why learning psychology can be one of the most powerful skills in life. Not because it helps you control people, but because it helps you understand them. And when you truly understand people, you gain something far more powerful than control. You gain clarity,